The starched white apron felt rough in my hands, a stark contrast to the glittering champagne flutes all around me. My sister, Sophia, didn't even meet my eyes as she pushed it towards me, her voice a sharp, dismissive whisper meant only for me. For God's sake, Ava, make yourself useful and help them plate the canapes in the back. Have you ever had that moment, the one where your own family looks straight through you, seeing only the convenient, boring version of you they created in their own minds? She had no idea the fate of her fiancé's lifelong dream rested on the opinion of the nobody she just sent to the kitchen like hired help. That night, they thought they were celebrating him. They were wrong. Before I dive into my story, I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and if you'd consider subscribing to my channel. It would mean the world to me and help me keep sharing more stories like this. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Ava, and the starched white apron felt rough in my hands. Before leaving my apartment, I had chosen my outfit with care, a simple navy dress, elegant but unassuming. The only ornament a small silver locket from my grandmother, for the girl who sees the truth in things. The inscription on the back read, "It felt like a piece of armor." As I was about to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Julian Croft. "Remember what you are there to do. The truth doesn't need a loud voice." His words settled me, driving over. A memory surfaced of being in Sophia's first car, a graduation present from our parents, while she criticized the sputtering engine of my own used sedan. "Honestly, Ava," she'd sighed, "aren't you embarrassed to be seen in that thing?" Some things, it seemed, never changed. The valet outside Aura barely gave my modest car a second glance before turning to a gleaming black Porsche that pulled up behind me. I caught a glimpse of Sophia through the restaurant's large glass window. She saw the exchange and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. He held the door for the Porsche's driver with a deference he hadn't afforded me. "In Sophia's world, the car you arrived in was the first sentence of your story. Mine, apparently, was a boring one. A larger-than-life poster of Sophia, laughing with a glass of champagne, was displayed near the entrance, branding the restaurant as much hers as it was Liam's. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of truffle oil and simmering ambition, a perfume I knew all too well. The hostess, a statuesque woman with a practiced smile, couldn't find my name on the list at first. "Are you sure you're with the opening party?" she'd asked, her eyes scanning me with doubt. "Perhaps under a different name," I simply said, "Ava," and waited. I saw her touch her earpiece as a muffled voice crackled through. Finally, Sophia, after spotting me looking awkward and out of place, waved me in from across the room with an impatient flick of her wrist. The hostess's professional smile faltered for a second, replaced by a flicker of confusion as she watched me walk in. My sister, shimmering in a sequin dress that caught the light like a trapped star, didn't even meet my eyes as she pushed the apron towards me. I noticed the restaurant's logo, Aura, elegantly embroidered on it. Her voice was a sharp, dismissive whisper meant only for me, a secret shame to be tucked away before it could stain the perfect evening she had curated. "For God's sake, Ava, make yourself useful and help them plate the canapes in the back. It's probably more your style than that dress anyway." The moment felt eerily familiar, a ghost of a memory from a high school fundraiser she had organized years ago. She had been the popular event chair, and I had shown up to help, only for her to hand me a heavy-duty trash bag in front of her friends. "You're so good at organizing," she'd chirped, the compliment a thinly veiled insult. "Just make sure none of this overflows." The role was always the same. She was the star, and I was the stagehand, meant to be efficient, helpful, and above all, invisible. I took the apron without a word, its crisp, unfamiliar fabric a costume for the role she had assigned me. I didn't go to the kitchen, but I walked past the swinging doors, catching a glimpse of the chaos inside, a frantic energy that bordered on panic, a sous chef yelling about the temperature of the ovens. I folded the apron neatly and placed it on an empty chair in a quiet corner. She saw me not as family, but as a problem to be managed. A plain piece of furniture that didn't match the expensive decor. She turned away before I could even respond, her attention already captured by a photographer, her smile instantly calibrated for the camera. She had no idea that the entire evening, the fate of her fiancé's lifelong dream, hinged on the opinion of the nobody she had just sent to the kitchen. That night, they thought they were celebrating him. They were wrong. My desire for the evening was simple: to see if Liam, the man my sister was marrying, truly had the soul of a chef. This wasn't just professional curiosity, it was personal. I had seen Sophia attach herself to shiny things her whole life, and I needed to know if Liam was just another accessory. I remembered him cooking for our family once, years ago, a simple pasta dish that was honest and full of heart. He had talked excitedly about the tomatoes he'd grown himself, and a dream of opening a small, honest place where the food did the talking. I wondered where that chef had gone. The conflict arose with every dish that paraded out of the kitchen, each one a testament to technical skill but lacking that voice, that story. The plates were beautiful, meticulously arranged, perfect for a photograph, but they didn't speak. I watched from a shadowed corner as Sophia took a bite of a scallop crudo, her eyes not on the food but on her phone. She declared it divine to her thousands of followers, her thumb tapping out a caption filled with effusive, empty praise. But I could taste the subtle, fatal flaw from across the room. I knew, just by the way the light hit the translucent flesh of the scallop, that the lime juice had begun to cook the delicate protein a moment too long. It was a mistake a home cook might make, but for a restaurant with this level of ambition, it was a quiet scream of incompetence. It was a detail my sister, for all her influence, would never comprehend. It reminded me of our grandmother, the one who taught me everything that mattered about food. She would let me stand on a stool in her warm, sunlit kitchen, teaching me to taste with my heart, not just my tongue. "Food tells a story, Ava," she used to say, her hands covered in flour. "Don't ever let anyone serve you a story that's a lie." Sophia had hated the kitchen. She found it messy and dull. She couldn't understand the magic in turning simple ingredients into something that could bring comfort and joy. To her, food was just another prop. I moved through the crowded room not as a guest, but as a ghost. My senses absorbed everything: the nervous tremor in a young waiter's hand, the slightly too loud music, the forced smiles on the faces of the investors calculating their potential returns. I noticed the wine they were pouring, an expensive but predictable choice that did nothing to complement the seafood being served. It was a choice made for the label, not the palate. I had a flash of memory to a dinner where Liam had passionately explained to me the nuances of pairing an obscure Austrian white wine with shellfish. That passion was nowhere to be found tonight. I saw my own parents holding court near the entrance. My father caught my eye and gestured for me to come over. "Ava, come, say hello," he boomed. Reluctantly, I approached. "This is our other daughter, Ava," he said to the couple he was with. "She does some sort of office work, helps manage spreadsheets for a food distribution company. I think very practical." My mother then added, touching the sleeve of my simple dress, "Sophia tried to get her to wear something a bit more festive, but you know, Ava, always so sensible." The woman gave me that same pitying smile my mother specialized in. "That's nice, dear," she said, before immediately turning back to my father to ask about his latest golf trip. I simply observed, making small cryptic notes in the worn leather-bound notebook from my grandmother, its pages filled with my secret language of flavors and flaws. Sophia spotted me at one point, scribbling near the bar. She marched over, a look of pure exasperation on her face. "What are you even writing?" she demanded, gesturing at the book. "A grocery list." "Honestly, Ava, can you try to look like you're having fun for one night?" She then lowered her voice, feigning helpfulness. "Look, there's a graphic designer over there who works for a small catering company. You two would probably have a lot to talk about. Go network." I glanced over at the man she indicated. He looked deeply uncomfortable in his ill-fitting suit and gave me a brief, pained smile of solidarity before looking away. She rolled her eyes dramatically at Liam, a clear, telegraph signal that her strange, boring little sister was, as usual, being antisocial. He gave a tight, distracted smile, his focus on the performance. They were both completely unaware that I was silently conducting the most important audit of his entire career. Later, I overheard Liam speaking with one of his main backers, a man with a tailored suit and an air of predatory patience. "I'm not afraid of any of the local critics," Liam boasted, his voice a little too loud. "The only one that matters is the arbiter. But they would never waste time on an opening night. They're in a different league entirely." He said my secret name with a mixture of reverence and fear, never once imagining that the person he held in such awe was currently being ignored by his own fiancé. The decision to become the arbiter had been a quiet one, made late one night after reading a dozen glowing reviews online for a restaurant I knew served frozen food. The reviews were all from influencers like my sister, paid in free meals and flattery. I realized then that the world didn't need another pretty picture of food. It needed the truth. My quiet investigation continued. I slipped down a hallway toward the restrooms. The door to the staff changing area was propped open, and I heard voices from within, hushed, angry whispers. A young cook, his face flushed with frustration, was speaking to a server. "He took all the credit," the cook said, his voice cracking. "The entire concept for the lavender honey dessert, the technique, all of it. That was my final project at the Institute. He saw my portfolio and just took it." As I lingered, the young cook exited the room, clutching a folder, his portfolio, I presumed, and our eyes met for a fleeting second. I saw the desperation in them, and I gave him a barely perceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement that his story had been heard. The server murmured something sympathetic, but I had heard enough. It wasn't just a technical flaw in the scallops anymore. This was a flaw in his character, a rot at the very core of the beautiful facade he and Sophia had built. I leaned against the cool wall of the hallway, the leather of my notebook feeling heavy in my hand. For a moment, I felt a wave of exhaustion. Maybe I should just leave, let them have their perfect hollow night. But then I thought of my grandmother and the young cook's stolen dream. My resolve hardened. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. I returned to the main dining room just as the climax began. The whole atmosphere had shifted. Julian Croft had entered, and though he moved quietly, a ripple of awareness followed him. Liam's posture visibly changed. He straightened his back, smoothed his chef's coat, his professional mask becoming even more rigid. People sat up straighter. Conversations became more hushed. He didn't demand attention, he commanded it. It didn't happen with a dramatic speech, but with a quiet, devastating question. Mr. Croft, the legendary editor, approached Liam's table. He was a man whose opinion was sought after like a holy relic, a man Liam had personally invited. I had seen him earlier, observing the room with the same quiet intensity as me. Our eyes had met for a brief second, a silent acknowledgement between two professionals. "An impressive opening, chef," Mr. Croft said, his voice calm and authoritative. His face was a mask of professional curiosity. "But the real question on everyone's mind is, have you heard if the arbiter will be reviewing you?" A hush fell over their small circle. I saw Liam's face go pale, the confident swagger draining from him in an instant. He admitted he had sent a dozen invitations to the arbiter's anonymous P.O. box with no reply, calling my pseudonym the one untouchable kingmaker in the industry. Sophia, standing beside him, scoffed lightly. "Probably too arrogant to even show up," she said, trying to dismiss the one name that could unravel her perfect night. It was then that Mr. Croft, my mentor of 5 years, caught my eye from across the room. He knew my methods, my disguises, my insistence on anonymity. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face, and he lifted his champagne flute in a subtle toast, a gesture of respect directed only to me. A woman at a nearby table noticed his gesture, followed his line of sight to me, and then looked away with a puzzled expression, unable to compute the significance. The gesture went unnoticed by everyone except for Liam. His eyes, wide with confusion, followed the editor's gaze. He scanned the crowd, looking for some dignitary, some hidden VIP. And then his eyes landed on me, on his future sister-in-law, the quiet one in the plain dress, the one his fiancé had sent to the kitchen, the one holding a worn leather notebook. I saw the gears turning in his mind, the frantic calculation, the dawning, sickening realization. I saw the blood drain from his face as he connected the dots, the editor's toast. The notebook, my quiet presence. His hand froze midair, the fork slipping from his grasp and clattering onto the plate. The sound seemed to echo in a sudden, localized silence around their table. In that horrifying, frozen moment of recognition, he finally understood the truth. He stumbled back a step, his hand instinctively going to Sophia's arm. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing silently. The name he had spoken with such reverence now a curse on his lips. "The notebook," he whispered, his voice a strangled, broken sound that only Sophia could hear. "Sophia, your sister's notebook. She's the arbiter?" Sophia laughed first, a sharp, nervous sound that cut through the tension. "Don't be ridiculous, Liam," she snapped, but her laughter died when she saw the sheer terror in his eyes. And then she looked at me. She saw the calm, unwavering gaze I held, the complete lack of surprise on my face. The carefully constructed world she had built around herself began to fracture. I didn't stay for dessert. As Sophia rushed over, her own face now a storm of confusion and dawning horror, asking why Liam was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost, I simply folded my cloth napkin and placed it gently on an empty table beside me. "Are you trying to ruin this for me?" "Ava," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. I looked at my sister, at the life she had built on filters and hashtags, and I felt a profound sense of detachment, not anger. It was a quiet, sad pity. "Tell Liam the scallops were overcooked," I said softly, my voice devoid of malice. It was not an insult, just a simple statement of fact. With that, I turned and walked towards the exit. I could feel every eye in the room on me, the whispers starting to ripple through the crowd like a shockwave. My parents were staring, their mouths agape. My father looked utterly bewildered. The investors who had ignored me were now watching with intense, calculating expressions. Sophia tried to grab my arm as I passed. "Ava, wait," she pleaded, her voice suddenly small. I gently pulled my arm free without looking at her and kept walking. As I stepped out into the cool night air, the distant pop of a champagne cork echoed from the restaurant, a sound of celebration that now felt entirely hollow. I passed the young cook from earlier. Who was on his break this time? His eyes held a flicker of dawning hope. I realized I hadn't come for revenge, but for clarity, and I had found it. I would not be writing a review of Aura. My judgment was already made, not on the food, but on the foundation of their life together, a structure built for show. Beautiful on the outside, but ultimately hollow within. I took out my notebook, and in the dim light of the street lamp, I tore out a single page. On it was the question that had been forming in my mind all night, the one that condemned him more than any review ever could. I walked back to the entrance and handed the folded note to the doorman, who now looked at me with a newfound respect. "Please give this to Chef Liam," I said, before walking away for good. The note didn't mention the scallops or the service. It contained only 8 words, a quiet echo of a crime he thought no one had witnessed. "Was the lavender honey dessert your recipe, Liam?" My silence would be a louder verdict than any words I could ever publish.